Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sarah. I work for Archetype Wealth Partners, and this is our beautiful guest, Dolly Thomas, whom I will introduce here shortly. I would like to go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to briefly introduce the company Archetype and Thrive and why we're here today before introducing our beautiful guest speaker, so that she can share more of her story. So Archetype is, like I said, the company that I work for, and we are a wealth management company that exists to help families thrive across generations by helping them connect their money with their purpose. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but we believe that your money touches four crucial areas. Obviously, your money is going to affect your investments, and so those are the vehicles that you use to multiply and to steward your wealth. But it's also going to affect your strategy. So the planning that goes into how you, the wealth and how you use it, both while you're living and after you've passed away. It affects your family, how you communicate around money and your motivations around money. One of our big policies here is we like to help spouses stay on the same page because we believe family unity is crucial when it comes to building wealth that's going to last for multiple generations. And lastly, it affects your legacy. If your wealth is going to outlive you, then what do you want to do with it? And we believe legacy is built and it starts with the present moment, and it can exist long after you're gone. And we want to help the families we serve shape a legacy both now and in the future that reflects the values that they hold dear. So that's a little bit about our company, Archetype. And within that, Thrive exists as an expression for women in particular. So women, just statistically, we end up managing a lot of the wealth that exists in the earth. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we tend to live longer. So we want to make sure that we're educated and informed. But one thing I'm very passionate about is I believe that men and women have a very unique perspective when it comes to money. And I'm going to use some broad brushstrokes here only because I want to highlight some differences. I know that we're all unique and we won't all fall into these buckets. But in general, men tend to see wealth as something to grow and create and multiply as a resource. And women tend to see wealth as a relational tool. And so they see wealth as a way to create moments for their family. They see wealth as a way to secure the future of their family. And they tend to see who their wealth in the end impacts. And so whenever both people bring their perspectives to the table, you can imagine that there's some differences and conflicts that come up in conversation about how wealth is used and how the money, the resources you've been given are stewarded. And we believe that both parties, both men and women, have an equally powerful perspective, but also incomplete. And we believe when men and women come together on equal footing with mutual respect for one another, both valuing the peace that the other person carries, we believe that an expression gets released into the earth that is greater than if just one person or the other got their way completely. So that's why Thrive exists, is we want to empower the voice of women within the financial sphere, especially women who are looking to steward wealth that will outlive them. So towards that end, we have shifted online. If you've joined us previously, we have moved from an in-gathering expression of Thrive to one that is online. And we've shortened the time frame a little bit, just based on feedback that we had from you guys in previous events, and just adjusting to the changes of the seasons that we're all having to get used to this year. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dolly Thomas. She is the beautiful wife of our founder, Jeff Thomas, and she is a woman who has gone through many transitions in her life, and that's really a theme that we want to focus on today. We've talked to a lot of people who are facing an unknown in their life, whether it's changing careers or even industries. Some people are launching a new business and some people are retiring, and there's a lot of transition going on this year. And Dolly can speak to, just from her own personal experience, a lot of those key transition times. She is a mother and a wife, and I will not steal her thunder, but you're in for a treat. I can truly say that. So I'll let Dolly introduce herself, and then we'll get started with the interview.
Thank you. Again, I'm Dolly Dawson Thomas. I have two girls. One just had a grandson. His birthday's today, so we have a 1-year-old grandson. And I have a 19-year-old Sophie, who is at Northwestern for, on campus some, but virtually most. But she's lucky enough to be on the field hockey team, so she gets to be on campus more than a lot of the current sophomores. And I'm married to Jeff, and I have a great son-in-law. I recently became empty nester with Sophie leaving, and so I had more time for my grandbaby. And I'm currently, I've been on the board for quite a while with Child Advocates, and about 4 or 5 years ago I took up tennis, so I'm a little bit addicted to that new venture.
I love it. I love it. And on top of all that, you were a business owner for many years.
Yes.
Which is where we're going to begin our questions. I want to trace back to when you first started and you graduated from college. Your first career was actually in accounting. And then you switched over into executive recruiting before launching your own company. So how did you decide to move from accounting to executive recruiting?
Well, I started in audit with Arthur Andersen, and I did not love audit. I never loved accounting. I was never passionate about accounting, but I was good at math, and started in engineering, ended up in accounting, but worked for a couple of years with Andersen. It was tons of amazing, smart, professional people. You dealt with clients, interacting with the clients, and so there were a lot of things that I did love about it, but it was an interesting path how I discovered executive recruiting. But once I did, I thought, well, that's interesting. So so I went to work for another a firm, and that was being launched, and I helped them launch that company. And there was a lot of oil and gas focus, but we focused primarily on controllers, basically county manager and above, and worked with a wide variety of clients. But there was kind of an oil and gas focus, and I just felt this, once I kind of figured out what the business was and what my new job role would be, I just felt like I really could do it better on my own, but I really wanted to have a business partner and want to go deeper with clients. It wasn't about production and goals and, placements, number of placements. And, I really wanted to make a good match, and I love people. I was very interested. The market was thriving. There were the roll-ups going on. The economy was great. I felt like that wasn't as big of a risk, that I wasn't entering during a downturn. And then I met a woman, and we immediately clicked, and both had the same vision, started meeting secretly for lunch for about 2 or 3 months, and then launched the company. And we had it for 19 years, and I loved it. So.
Okay, yeah. A big theme you're going to notice as we go through this interview is, again, we're focusing on transitions and on facing the unknown, and navigating through some of the uncertainty that comes when you are deciding to be bold and go out and market yourself instead of having a brand name behind you. And so when you decided to start your own business, what was that experience like? Were there some nerves involved?
Well, of course, yeah. I had doubted myself, but I had a few other friends, a few other women at the time that had launched businesses. One completely changed careers, and she was very encouraging. We went to lunch. And it was just that moment. She's looking at me. She goes, "What are you talking about? You can do this." And I was like, "Okay, yes, I can. I'm going to do it." And the company launched like 2 months later. But I just, when you doubt yourself, you just shouldn't. In my gut, I knew I could do it. And luckily we were successful. We worked with, all different industries. And eventually we emerged into retained search, where we worked even closer with the clients when they're giving you money up front. It's a great partnership. And I got involved in a national executive recruiting association called the Association of American Finance and Accounting, and I became the president of that. And so I met recruiters from all over the country, and we could work searches together and help each other when we had larger companies with opportunities in other cities. So it was fun. And then I decided it wasn't.
Which is the end of the story. We're not quite there yet. So in that process, I love that you said that you had people come around you and
Absolutely.
basically believe in you for you before you believed in yourself
Yes.
at that moment. At the same time, you were a young mother, a wife, and you're passionate about singing, so extracurriculars. So what was that like as you considered adding something to your plate after you had a pretty full life already? What was that? How did you
Well,
navigate through?
I really believed that, I mean, it was sales, and I felt like, I could make it flexible, ebb and flow during the time, certain times like holidays, or summer. I would allow myself to take a vacation, and I had a great business partner, so we could, back each other up. We tried not to be gone at the same time possible. I have great family, when I would go on business trips, sister and grandmother, my mother's, Jeff's mother, having that support, and then the ability to, work a little bit part-time in certain years, like when Sophie was really young. So, I had the luxury of that, and I lived very close to my office, and so I could come and go and be with her as needed. So
yeah. So you had a strong support network,
right,
for sure. So when you think about those years, and we're talking to women who are in different phases of transition, and it could be that they're launching into marriage, or they're launching their own business. Maybe they're deciding whether to continue their career or shift. So when you think about the ways that you've navigated through your own seasons of the unknown, what kind of advice would you give, either to those women or to your younger self, if you could look back and say, Dolly, listen up?
Well, I just think, if there's something that you're passionate about and you want to do it, whether you've done it before or you've never done it, and I think if you're passionate about it, and I really think you'll be successful, not necessarily monetarily, but just, enjoying, the quality of your new life, So I wouldn't have waited so long, for sure, to start my own company, for sure.
That's encouraging. And what would your advice be, just as we all have those times of doubt where we're just not sure we're enough for the job, or maybe we're too much at any given moment? What would your advice be when facing down those doubts?
Well, I would, find a good support group. I mean, I have great, very, very good friends. Most of my family is entrepreneurial. We're in different, segments of industries, but I have them, very intelligent mother, still working at 80, just encouraging people, having encouraging people, and whether it's family or friends or other, business associates. But I had a good network from Anderson, so I had a lot of really good contacts for different things, whether it was IT or operations or marketing, or, I had a lot of people that I could reach out to for, kind of consulting help.
Yeah, it's good advice. We have a principle at Archetype. We have 12 core principles that we believe help move a family, just help define a thriving family. And one of them is life is a team sport. And it has a lot of applications, but obviously in this context, when you go to launch out into the new, surrounding yourself with a team is crucial, I think, for success, especially in the long term, to avoid burnout. Because you made it through for a couple decades before
Just
you decided 2 decades. It's quite the adventure, which kind of brings us to our next question here. You eventually did decide you were ready to move to a new phase. So tell us about folding the company and kind of your decision to transition out of being a full-time business.
Well, it kind of started around the time that Jeff was going to leave Morgan Stanley and start Archetype. He was very, very passionate about it, and had this vision, and was basically going to have to work 2 jobs to, in the evenings or any off time, weekends. He was focused on establishing Archetype. And at the time, I was traveling around with Sophie, looking at colleges. She was playing field hockey and being recruited and wanting to get her into top school, as best school as we could. And I thought, I can't be continually building this business and be able to do all those things, and handle the home life. So I pulled back, started working part-time. My business partner ended up moving to Colorado a few years before and was working there. Then she joined another firm. So I had to make that decision to find a new partner, or find some people to work for me, or make some other kind of change. And I just started pulling back and worked a little bit less. And I always thought, well, if I'm not enjoying it, I can always go back. And I just did less and less, and I wasn't really missing it that much. All the other things were just filling my life in such a good way. So eventually I did dissolve DDI. It ended last year, and my life is just full. So I'm ready for the next adventure, whatever that is, if it's business or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's interesting because you mentioned you kind of backed out of DDI whenever Jeff was getting ready to launch Archetype. And just for those of you watching online, Archetype was birthed out of Morgan Stanley. So Jeff launched out of Morgan Stanley and came here to work at Archetype. So he had a career in wealth management for multiple decades. And he felt very called to build and scale his own company. And he scaled to a degree within Morgan Stanley before deciding that in order to fully serve, similar to what you said at the beginning, in order to serve clients to the degree that he wanted to go deep with his clients and to truly serve them in all areas that wealth touches, not just in their investments, he was going to have to go out on his own. And so around the same time, just as you mentioned that you kind of pulled back, he was launching, which, I mean, he didn't do that as a young 25-year-old. This was kind of later in his career, in his prime earning years. And like you said, you had just become an empty nester, and there was a lot going on in the home. So what was that like, thinking through, oh gosh, our stable financial future might not be as stable?
I just believed in him, and
Yeah.
I really did. And I already knew he was, some of the other team members were coming over, and some of the new people that he met, he wanted to bring on. I really had the faith that it was going to work. And I didn't care if you made more money, or I just said, if you're going to be happier and still enjoy your work, be happy when you come home, that's a win-win. And he's never been happier, never ever looked back. So that's a blessing.
Yes. Yeah. And this is something I've noticed about both you and Jeff is you guys both are always very positive, and you're very careful with your words. There's just not a lot. I never hear y'all complain. And is there anything you would say about just the power of words, or has that always been just how you're wired?
Well, yeah, I'm very, very optimistic. Oh, yes. And I do remember that when I started dating Jeff, I'm like, I just like that he's very positive. He's a very positive presence, and a good energy. So
yeah. You'll definitely watch your words well, and every time you walk into a room, it just breathes a lot of energy because you practice such positive speech throughout. So as you look back over launching and running your company, if you could go back to any one point, is there anything you would do differently?
I mean, I don't have regrets about the size of the company, or, at times we talked about expanding or having a different segment of the business, having, a contract business versus just permanent contingency and retained search. Like I said, I would have started it sooner. But I can't think of anything that I wouldn't have done.
I love that. So I want to move now. We have a little bit of bonus time, which is great. So I want to move to letting you speak a little bit about being an empty nester, because I know that's a huge transition that a lot of women go through and comes with high swings and emotions. So you want to talk a little bit about launching both of your girls?
Launching Allie, luckily she went to A&M, so she was close, but it was very hard. We're very close, but I was like, well, I raised her to do what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to go to college, supposed to be independent, and there she was going off. And same with Sophie, and they were both. Sophie's currently still very, very happy in college and playing field hockey, and Allie did great at A&M, became a teacher, and married a great guy, and now has a little boy. And so the light of my life. So I'm not a grandma, I'm Dee Dee, and we spend a lot of time together. And recently Allie just joined Archetype, so it's all in the family. And redecorating the house, playing tennis, still singing in the church, still on the board of Child Advocates. So life is full.
Yeah. Was that hard to see Sophie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the quiet house, that's very different, but you laugh and go, well, that's what she's supposed to do. She's doing what she's supposed to do. She's she's not floundering. So I had to look at it in the positive. I was feeling sorry for myself, but then I would say, but you did a good job. She's in a great school. So
yeah. Well, I would be remiss if we have just a little bit of time left, and if I didn't give you some airtime to talk about your grandson, Cameron. So this is your chance to rave on your grandbaby. If you have any stories you want to share, how old he is? He just had a birthday.
He just turned 1.
Yeah.
He is, you talk about positive and happy and sweet and loving and aware and just a light, and reminds me a lot of Allie. She's the same, just a ray of sunshine when she walks in the room. And so, yeah, that's a big blessing. So get to work on having grandkids if you don't already.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your story. I know we did it in a condensed,
Yes.
We only had 30 minutes, and we want to leave some time on the end for Q&A, but I appreciate you taking the time to share with these women. And our goal today really was to leave you encouraged. And for those of you who are, like I said at the beginning, considering moving, transitioning, launching into becoming your own company, or finding that business partner, we want you, both Dolly and I want you to know that you do have what it takes, and you can find the people to support you, that you're not in it on your own, and finding that support system and launching out on your own can be incredibly rewarding, challenging, difficult, and not easy to face down some of the fears and the doubts that we all have lingering within us that we have to put to rest. But we hope that this inspired you, and I hope that listening to Dolly's story allowed you time to reflect on your own story and to identify those parts and pieces that you want to become bold and move forward in. So thank you for spending your lunchtime with us, over 30 minutes of lunch, and we have about 5 minutes left. And so if there's any questions that you have for Dolly or myself about the company or about Dolly's story, now would be the time to ask them. So there's a chat box down below, and then a Q&A segment as well. And thank you, Paige. We appreciate the kudos and the shout outs. And so if you have any questions, please feel free at this point to type your questions and we'll address them. Awesome. Tell me more about Child Advocates. We didn't really touch on that, but you've been on the board for Child Advocates for a little while.
Yeah, I've worked primarily in helping with fundraising and development. There's some key events that they have each year to raise money, and I usually help with most of those one way or another. It's a critical organization helping abused and neglected children be put in a permanent home, and it's a great company, and I'm very passionate about them and the staff and the hard work that they're doing in current challenging times for fundraising and not being able to have the events that we have wanted to, and doing things virtual or otherwise. But it's a wonderful organization.
How did you, I think this is something that a lot of women, when you're considering what to get involved with, there's something you could get involved with so much, especially in Houston. So how did you narrow your focus, and did you have to let some things go in order to focus on Child Advocates, or did it naturally rise?
Well, I initially started working with Make-A-Wish, and I really liked that organization too. And then I was introduced to Child Advocates. I met the founder of Child Advocates at a conference, and we were talking, and everything she said, I was just like, wow, that's incredible. And Make-A-Wish, unfortunately, didn't have much of a happy ending, right? You got to have the wish, but it wasn't going to be a happy ending. And in Child Advocates, this is wonderful pulling, removing children from very abusive and neglectful homes and putting them in a new, thriving, loving, permanent home is the goal. So the training of the advocates is their primary, what they're training thousands of advocates that go out and speak for the children in the court system.
You have a gift of being very present and intentional with whatever it is that you decide to put yourself towards. There's just this incredible focus and intentionality, and you bring your full gift mix to the table. which which I love about you, because it's what fills the room with so much joy. Is you don't just do it out of obligation or duty. You really care about what you're involved in and people who you surround yourself with. So. So that wraps, if we have no other questions, that wraps us for this afternoon. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for taking some time. And if you think of any questions on the back end, we will be sending out a follow-up email. You can reply back and we can address those questions then. But otherwise, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy the beginning of this holiday season and have a great afternoon. Thanks, guys.